Okie doke. I need as much help as I can get on this. This is a brand new Lifan X-Pect. Well, not brand new. It's got about 70 miles on it, and so far it's been running perfectly fine. It's been perfect. I've been commuting on it. I've done several 15-20 mile trips on it, and it's been absolutely fine until a couple days ago. I was going down a hill, and when I got to the bottom of the hill, I downshifted and hit the gas to do a U-turn and start going back up the hill, and I noticed it was dead. So it had died some time coming down the hill, and I hadn't noticed. And it didn't want to start. I turned the key off and on, off on. Finally got it to start and limped it home, but the whole time I was driving home it was surging. So you hold the throttle in one position and it's like somebody's turning the key off and on the bike. And I'm trying to figure out if the fuel pump is not running all the time, or it only happens when it's fully warmed up. So I'm wondering if maybe the oxygen sensor, when it goes into closed loop, is doing something. But you'll see what I'm talking about here in a minute. I'll take it for a ride. But so far I have unplugged and replugged in the oxygen sensor and made sure it's making a good connection. I've taken the throttle position sensor off and moved it around to feel if there's any like broken feeling in there. It felt fine. I loosened the little screw so that I could clock it multiple ways and see if that made a difference, and it didn't. So I put it back in the middle and put it on there. I've fiddled with this screw all the way out, all the way in, various depths of in and out. It hasn't seemed to make a difference. One of the things the owner's manual mentions is that the magneto, if the ECU notices some sort of interrupted signal, like it misses some of the teeth on the magneto, it will turn the fuel pump off. And I'm almost wondering if that's what's happening, but why does it only do it when it warms up? For the first 2-3 miles while it's warming up, it drives fine. It drives like a bat out of hell, which kind of points at the oxygen sensor because it's not in closed loop yet when it's running fine. It has the same engine as this KPM. The KPM obviously is the second version, but for the most part a lot of it is the same. And I bought this when I bought that, and the KPM's been awesome. This bike, if anybody's looking at getting one of these KPM 200s, I highly recommend it. It is a awesome bike for the money. But this one's been hanging with the KPM. I've raced them side by side to compare them. I've commuted on both of them, and they've both been fine until recently. So I'll take this for a test drive. You can see I've got all the panels off where I've been fiddling with it. Took the air filter out, looked in the air filter box, make sure there wasn't like something had crawled in there and died and was clogging it up or anything. It was all fine. So I'm at a loss. Hopefully you guys will be able to help me out or tell me what troubleshooting steps to take. I did put a new spark plug in it last night, so we'll see if that makes a difference. I don't know, it's just super interesting. It starts perfectly fine, runs perfectly fine, and then out of nowhere it'll just start messing up. So we'll see if it does it today. If you let it sit for a couple of hours or overnight and start it back up, it's like nothing ever happened. It goes right back to being fine. Then once it does start surging and bucking and kind of fish biting with the acceleration, you can turn it off and let it sit for a few minutes and turn it back on, and it doesn't make a difference. It has to sit for a significant period of time to really cool off. So it's just, I don't know. I know it's got the oxygen sensor where it's a fuel injected bike, but I don't know if it has some sort of engine temperature sensor. I don't know where to begin on this thing. I mean, as you can tell, it's doing fine. It's got power. It's driving fine. It's not surging. Acceleration is smooth. It doesn't have any dead spots in it. Super frustrating that it does this, because it's such a great bike. I recommend these Lifan X-Pects to anybody looking for a dual sport that wants to maybe see what fuel injection is all about. Because one of the commutes I take has a pretty significant, it's like 1,200 foot elevation difference, and on carbureted bikes you can definitely tell where the jetting starts to become, you know, non-ideal with the elevation change. And this thing compensated for the difference in elevation climbing the mountain, where a carbed bike I have starts to have some issues with the jetting, where it's going from, you know, one elevation to one that's like 1,200 feet higher. It definitely starts to lose power and run worse. You know, still drivable, but this X-Pect, where it's the fuel injection and it's kind of self-learning and ability to tune itself on the fly, there's no drivability difference. I mean, it's great. I love it. It's such an awesome setup, having a, you know, cheap China bike, but it having real deal fuel injection. So I'm really bummed that it's starting to have issues on me. I should have set the trip meter. It's got 87 miles on it now. Set the trip. We've gone probably about a mile so far. Yeah, it's still doing good. Can start rolling the throttle, and it does what it's supposed to do. Oh yeah, definitely running good. For being a 197cc, really happy with the horsepower. I'm really happy with the torque. The bike's completely stock right now, but I do have a 17-tooth front sprocket and a 42-tooth rear sprocket. I believe currently it's 15 front, 46 rear. So by the time I get both of those on, it'll have a lot more, you know, high speed capability. Right now it tops out between 50 and 60, depending on whether you're flat or have a slight uphill grade and how high you want to rev it. Where it's still braking in, I've been kind of gentle on it, so I haven't really done a high speed test run. I've got AMS oil, braking oil in it right now. It's got a lot of zinc in it, and it's really good to help helps seat the rings and the valve train. It helps. Still running great. Maybe the spark plug fixed it. I'm hesitant to have hope. If it does end up being that it was a spark plug, it makes no sense that a spark plug would be fine 1 second and then not another, then fine 1 second, not another. Usually if they foul out, it's just plain fouled out. It's not on, off, on, off, on, off, like somebody turning the light switch. I'm not quite at full throttle. I'm trying to be gentle to it. I really don't like being at this high RPM as I am anyway, where it's under 300 miles, but I'm also trying to get it to replicate this problem that it only seems to have when it's really warmed up, so I'm trying to get some heat in the engine. That AMSOIL brake-in oil definitely, it's really good stuff. I've used it to break in engines before, and I've definitely noticed the piston rings seat faster and everything seems to go through less wear. There's less metal shavings in your oil after your first oil change, which is really good for these bikes where they're so tight from the factory. Still seems to be doing good. Trip saying 3.4 miles. We've probably gone between me starting the trip meter late and the speedometer being off. We've probably gone more like 4-ish, so it should definitely be fully warmed up and messing up by now, and it's not. So maybe it was the spark plug. Super, super strange. If it was, we'll see. Like right now it says I'm going 50, 52, 51, 50. I've seen on Moto Cheese's videos and Small Engine Velocity, both of those are great channels if you don't watch them already. The speedometers always read high on these. It's like they're calibrated for a slightly taller tire. It'd be interesting to figure out exactly what percent off these are and find a tire that matches that percent difference in height. See if you can get your speedometer to be dead on. Plus having a slightly taller tire would give you more highway speed. Well, not highway. I doubt you're going to take your 200cc Lifan X-Pect on the interstate and expect it to go 80, but you know what I'm saying, like 55 mile per hour roads. So what it was doing is yesterday, coming up this hill, I'd hold the throttle in one position and it would be bucking. It'd have power, and then it'd have nothing. It'd be dying. If you put it in or pulled the clutch in, it would just be dead. And you could let the clutch back out to kind of roll start it, and it would fire back up and run for like 20 feet, then cut off. And you just hold the throttle in one position, and it would be dead, then wah, dead, wah, dead, wah. It was the craziest thing. Like I said, it was like somebody was turning the key on and off. But while it was doing that, I wiggled the key and jiggled that. I took my hand and slapped the fuel pump. I mean, I was doing everything I could do to try to figure out what the issue was, whether it was the fuel pump cutting off and on, and if so, if that was because of, like, it was not getting signal from the magneto that the engine was running, so it was going into like a safe mode, or if it was an electrical plug connection, whether the throttle position sensor was saying it was like the throttle wasn't open when it was, or just, so frustrating. This is very, very interesting. It definitely would have been messing up by now. Something I did do is when I put the new spark plug in, because I bought this bike from Texas Power Sports, and when I bought it from them, they included a spare spark plug. And when I took the original spark plug out, the gap was really, really small. Smaller than the bike called for, but it had been perfectly fine for 70 miles, so it hadn't been affecting. Oh, there we go, there we go, there it is, there it is. It just, yep, alright, see, I'm holding the throttle in the same position, and you could hear it die up. Yep, it's fish biting on me. Off, on, off, on. On, off, on, off, on. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to turn around before I get too far from home. Aha! So it's not the spark plug. I was going to say I gapped the spark plug to spec, and maybe that was the difference the whole time, but clearly not. Sure you can hear it. And there's a certain throttle position it seems to like when it does this. It's like quarter throttle. You can see that's no throttle. That little twist, and you can see when it dies, if I twist the throttle back and forth and back and forth, it'll pick up at like quarter, maybe not even quarter, maybe it's like eighth throttle. So why the hell, so this is 8, probably 9 miles into it that it started messing up. So why was it perfectly fine for 9 miles, driving like a bat out of hell, hitting 50, 55 miles an hour, pulling hills, you know, perfectly fine. And then for no reason, I believe I was on a downhill, so it wasn't even under load, it starts messing up. can see him holding the throttle in one position, doing absolutely nothing, and it's turning itself on and off and on and off. It's like it's starving for fuel, or the fuel pump is turning off because maybe it's not seeing the magneto spinning. It's like not seeing the teeth spinning, so it's saying, hey, the engine's not running, turn the fuel pump off. Then all of a sudden it's like, oh shit, it is spinning, turn the fuel pump back on. Or is it going into closed loop and the oxygen sensor is sending something weird? Or is the throttle position sensor saying, you know, hey, throttle's open, no it's not, it's closed, yes it's open, no it's closed, no, open, closed, and that's doing it? I don't know. God almighty, this is so annoying. Let's see if we can limp it home. If you hold it wide open, it doesn't really matter. It doesn't matter if you're... Only reason I'm getting away with holding it wide open is I'm going downhill. See, I'll leave it alone for a second, see if that makes any difference. Nope, it didn't last any longer before it started hiccuping. You would think if it was starving for fuel, leaving it alone and letting it build up a little reserve of fuel in the lines or something would make a difference. So I doubt that's it. Oh, by the way, this thing's got like a full tank of fuel. I mean, like full. Baby, just want to make it to the top of the hill, please. I'm sure people who see me are like, what in the hell is he doing as this thing's hiccuping and carrying on, turning on and off? They're probably like, does he know how to drive a motorcycle? Oh well. Gonna experiment. Cut the kill switch. Nope, that didn't make a difference. Here, once I get into a straight spot, I'll turn the key off and take it out and put it back in and wiggle it around just in case there's like a loose connection there. But again, we go back to how the hell did it last for 8 miles perfectly fine and then, you know, on a smooth part of the road mess up. This is definitely a sensor or connection issue. I mean, is there like a speed sensor that could be messing up and telling the... Well, no, that wouldn't make a difference because when it's idling, sitting on the kickstand at 0 miles an hour, you know, it still has to run. So that's not it. So again, that goes to maybe the magneto or going into closed loop. Key out. Key on. Oh, she's dead. What the fuck? Turning the key off, taking it out, putting it back in, turning it back on helped. What the hell? So when you turn it off, what resets when you start it again? Oh, no, it's doing it again. Alright, so it helped for a split set. Well, now it's picking back up. What the hell? What's wrong with this thing? It's brand new. Oh, no, it's still doing it. It's better. It's better than it was. You remember back there 45 seconds ago, I couldn't basically go over 15 miles per hour on a flat spot. Now I'm going 30 going up a hill. Could it be, I mean, the CDI box? But again, the question, I'm beating a dead horse. Why does it start perfectly fine? Rides like a dream. Uphill, downhill, flatlands, high speed, low speed. And then after several miles of running and it gets some heat into it, that's when it messes up. So what's different when it's warm than it's cold? Aside from the obvious oxygen sensor goes from open loop to closed loop. If it was a throttle position sensor issue, the throttle position sensor obviously is on top of the throttle body, and the throttle body has a rubber hose that goes from the air filter to the throttle body, and then the throttle body has a little rubber hose that goes from it to the engine. So that rubber hose that goes from the engine to the throttle body will help segregate the throttle body away from heat. So I don't think it's heat that would affect the throttle body. And it messed up when I was riding a smooth paved road, so I don't think it's vibrations. You'd think it would mess up earlier when I was driving through this washboardy, rutted out, you know, bumpy dirt road. So I don't think it's the throttle body sensor. But I mean, I don't know anything yet. I have no idea. If it's the fuel pump, is it a connection issue? The 2-wire plug that goes into it is maybe loose? I don't think so, because I unhooked that yesterday and hooked it back in. And matter of fact, where I've got these side covers off, I'm not going to do it now in this turn, but going down this hill maybe, I'll wiggle it and see if that makes a difference to where it's a loose connection. But again, why is it fine for so long? All right, where are we at here? Can't see. I'm hitting it with my hand. Nah, it's not making a difference. So maybe the sensor that looks at the teeth on the magneto as it spins to see that, hey, it's running. Maybe it has something to do with that. If so, does anybody know how to adjust that on these particular bikes? And how would I test that? And why the hell is that sensor fine for so long? I want to say it's the oxygen sensor. But again, I mean, the oxygen sensor should be, I don't know, like on cars, it just makes a check engine light come on, and there's no freaking check engine light right now. I don't know what to think. It's acting like it's the throttle position sensor. It's acting like I'm going wide open throttle and letting off. Wide open and off. But if that's the case, why is it so fine for so long? So frustrating. I don't think it's the kill switch, because it's also, you know, the same symptom would be if you're sitting here turning the kill switch on and off and on and off and on and off. But that wouldn't be affected by ride time. If there's something messed up in here, every time you hit a pothole or a bump in the road, whatever bad connection was happening would happen. So it wouldn't be fine on a terrible road and then on a smooth paved road cut out. That makes no sense. This is a normal cable, so it's not like there's an electrical signal in here. It's getting the signal of this off of the throttle position sensor, which again points to it maybe being a throttle position sensor issue. So frustrating. Let's see if this thing has any check engine codes. Nope. Of course not. It thinks everything's fine. That makes no sense. So it's not seeing that it's having this issue, which if it was the oxygen sensor, that should throw a check engine code. If it was the fuel injection system, that should throw a check engine code. I'll have to look in the owner's manual again, but I don't recall it having a code for the throttle position sensor. I don't know what to think, guys. I don't know what to think. It acts like the throttle position sensor is thinking I am wide open, off, open, off, open, off, open, off. Like this is having an intermittent failure. But you didn't see it in this video, but yesterday when it was doing this, when I was riding down the road, I had the screw loose on this, so I could clock this more this way or this way to see if that mattered, and it didn't. I wiggled the electrical connection, and that didn't seem to make a difference. I unplugged the fuel injector here and plugged it back in just in case there's a loose connection there. Didn't make a difference. I'm at a loss. Because when I guarantee you, if I let this sit for 2-3 hours and cool down, or overnight or whatever, if I let this thing fully cool down and hop back on it, I can be wide open throttle 50 miles an hour for 5, 6, 7, 8 miles again, like it's perfectly fine. And then for no reason, doesn't seem to matter if you're going uphill, downhill, rough road, smooth road, whenever it's got, I don't know, maybe a certain heat in the system or what, maybe it's time, I'm not sure, it will start hiccuping and acting like you're turning the engine off or releasing the throttle, and then it'll pick right up, then off, then on and off and on. The fact that it starts fine and then has an issue after you've drove for 5, 6, 7, 8 miles leads me to believe it could be heat, like the oxygen sensor goes into closed loop and it only has a problem when it's in closed loop. But when that throw check engine code, the symptoms also, like maybe the throttle position sensor is telling the ECU the throttle's open, now he let off. Now it's open, now he let off. Now it's open, now he let off. So it could be throttle position sensor. I don't know if it would throw a code for that. The CDI box could be maybe throwing spark, then not throwing spark, throwing spark, then not throwing spark. When it hiccups, it definitely seems like power is completely cut. It's not like it just has reduced horsepower. It's like the engine has been just straight up turned off. On that straightaway on the dirt road, when I took the key out, put it back in, and started again, it was fine for a couple of seconds. So why the hell would that make any difference? When you turn it off and turn it back on, what completely resets that it would be fine for a little bit? God. It's frustrating because it's not much different than this KPM, and the KPM's doing really, really good. If you take this cover off, I know that the magneto's in there, I believe, and there's a couple wires that go in right here that have a little rubber plug, and I believe that is what is looking at the magneto spinning by the teeth, seeing the teeth spinning, which is telling the fuel pump to pump. So that's another issue, or potential issue, is that sensor is starting to lose its connection or sight, like it's too far away from the magneto, so it's like not seeing it spin for a second. So it's saying, oh, the engine's off, hey fuel pump, quit running, and it goes and bogs out, and then it sees it again because it's still spinning, it's not stopped spinning, it sees it again, it's like, oh shit, fuel pump run, then it runs. So it could be the magneto. I don't really know how to test that, and I'm scared to pull that plug and wires out, and I don't know how you would adjust that. There doesn't seem to be adjustment in there. I've pulled, this is the ECU, I've pulled the connector out of it yesterday and put it back in, and it was fine. Got good connections here. I don't think it's a connections issue, because I've done just about everything, every electrical connector you can on here, and plugged it back in very carefully and evenly to make sure it wasn't a loose connection. I think it's going to be either something to do with the oxygen sensor, the throttle position sensor on the other side, or the little magneto sensor. Let me know what you guys think, and I'll just start doing whatever you guys say, thing by thing by thing, till we figure it out. Things we've eliminated is the air filter, the spark plug, because it's done it with a spark plug that was gapped too close and a spark plug that was gapped correctly. It has a full tank of fuel, and it's really good fuel. It's like 90 octane with no ethanol in it. I've taken the throttle body off and verified that when you turn this, everything turns in there and there's nothing blocking it. I suppose I could take the fuel injector out and point it to the side and run it and see if it shoots a stream of gas, but I'm going to assume it does. Plus, it wouldn't make sense that it would be fine for so many miles and then start screwing up, but be able to go wide open before it cuts off. I don't know. I feel like I'm beating a dead horse on a lot of these topics, so I'll shut up and let you guys respond to what you think it is. Thanks for the help.